Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today I'm going to be playing an old-time classic. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to be making this a once-a-week or maybe a couple times a week video where I take a look at an old game and play through it and kind of have a campaign-type game as I play through the game. In this video, I'm playing a classic from 1997, published by Sierra Games, and called Civil War Generals 2. It was a sequel to a much less well-known and appreciated game called Civil War Generals Robert E. Lee. This game is an absolute classic in my book and is one of the premier turn-based strategy games even to this day. I think it holds up pretty well. The user interface is pretty well done. It's a remarkably deep game, yet also being remarkably simple to pick up and play. With that being said, the game that I'm playing here is actually a live stream, so I'm providing a little bit of narration intro, but the audio you'll be hearing for this game once I get started here is from the live stream, which took place in the early morning hours on August 14th. This was about a 2-hour live stream. I played through the first battle, the Battle of Blackburn Ford. I also played through the Battle of Bull Run. I may end up providing kind of historical narration for the later battle because I did not talk as much as I would have liked to during the actual live stream. I'm still kind of new to live streaming, so making sure I'm talking and providing informative content is a little bit of a challenge. I think I did a better job of that during the first fight, but we'll see. I may restructure these videos a little bit. This is going to be a new series, though. I'm going to try and play through as much of the Civil War Generals campaign as I can, and hopefully you guys find it enjoyable. I was quite surprised. The live stream turnout was very large. I had over 400 views over the 2-hour live stream on the actual channel, or on the stream itself. There were over 450 views actually, with a concurrent audience in the multiple dozens at any one time. So seemed to be well received. Those are good numbers for me. Obviously peanuts in terms of YouTube or Twitch land, but good numbers for me. So anyway, guys, I'm going to stop my rambling and I'll let you get into the game. I hope you enjoy it, and let me know your thoughts. This first part will cover the Battle of Blackburn Ford. Bull Run will be a separate video, which I may chop into multiple pieces. Alright, hello ladies and gentlemen, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today I'm going to be live streaming Civil War Generals 2. It's a game that was released in 1997 and was published by Sierra Games. It was the sequel to the less well-known Civil War Generals Robert E. Lee. In that game, the original game, there were 7 battles that you could play through, 7 of the big battles during the Civil War. You had Bull Run 2, you had Fredericksburg, you had Chancellorsville, you had Shiloh, Gettysburg, and I believe the Wilderness. Actually, Shiloh might not have been in that at all. It might have just been Chancellorsville and then the Wilderness. I lost count. My math sucks, so I'm already embarrassing myself just a few seconds in. But Civil War Generals 2 was released all the way back in 1997, and it's kind of a cult hit these days. It was pretty popular back in the day, I think, but it's pretty well regarded by anyone who likes turn-based games or Civil War games or war games at all, even in this late age. So I'm actually going to start a campaign today. Now, we're not going to play through the entire war tonight, but I do think I'm going to start a live stream series where I will continuously revisit this game, and because of that, I'm going to do the granddaddy of them all. I'm going to do the Civil War campaign. That is 20 plus battles, maybe 40. I can't remember how many different battles there are, but there are a lot of battles in this campaign, and it's a branching campaign as well. I believe to some extent casualties and definitely weapons for brigades carry over, but it gets a little bit funny sometimes. Early in the war it works well, especially during the 7 Days campaign, but once you break out into East and then West theater, and then some theaters you have a 6-month break, it doesn't always seem like casualties carry over that effectively. But anyway, we're going to play the granddaddy of them all, the Civil War campaign, and let's take a vote here. Who should we play as, the Confederacy or the Union? What do you guys think? I'll give you a minute to vote. Just going to take a drink of scotch while all of you vote. I've got 2 votes for the Union. Don't see anything for the Confederacy yet. 3 votes for the Union, 1 for the Confederacy. Biz, I would say the Civil War era is the era I know the most about. Certainly taught from kind of more of a northern aspect. I'm from the state of Wisconsin, so home of, what, 2 or 3 of the regiments that made up the Iron Brigade. But let's take a look here. 3 for the Union, 2 for the Confederacy. I will say that when I have played this game in the past, I generally play as the Confederacy. I think the campaign flows a little bit better as the Confederacy, especially because if you're playing as the Union and you're winning early on, it makes things difficult to fathom, like, okay, if the Union crushed the Confederacy at Bull Run, why doesn't the war end right there? And it doesn't in the game. So I think playing from the Confederacy makes more sense if you're trying to make a historically plausible game. But again, I haven't played as the Union very much. So I guess based on the voting here, it's 3-5 in favor of the Union. So I will go ahead and play as the Union. Okay, so the Civil War, this is the big one. Every battle in both theaters is linked and cross-linked in an intricate fashion. Your performance in each battle will determine where your army must fight next, usually automatically, although sometimes you'll face choices. In that regard, it's very similar to Panzer General, where you play through this linear campaign, but from time to time in the original Panzer General, you'd get an option like, hey, do you want to go to Russia, or do you want to go to North Africa? And that'll influence kind of the way the campaign goes. The full war campaign will almost never play out the same way twice. That's somewhat true, although the variants aren't always noticeably different. Historical detail, plays the Union, trying to avoid the early embarrassment. Plays the South, whatever your choice for the Federals, and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Says Ulysses S. Grant versus Robert E. Lee, but we both know neither of these figures were playing a prominent role early in the war. Grant more so in the West, but even then, Lee followed him pretty quickly later, but it really wasn't until 1862 that either of them came on the stage. And our first battle is actually going to be the Battle of Blackburn's Ford. I'm going to minimize the overview map. Whoops, what the hell did I just do? Return to the game. I hit the wrong button there. Hit the camp button. Okay, let's get rid of that overview map. That's kind of in the way. I will apologize if things are a little bit jumpy here. I am running this on a Windows 10 machine with a quad-core i7 processor, and the scrolling is incredibly fast, and I've actually got 2 monitors, so because I have 2 monitors, it makes scrolling to the right very difficult. So I'm just going to move my initial troops down here, and down this main road. This thick road here is a pike, which you can move really quickly around. There are smaller roads. If we go south, you'll look here. Some of these roads look a little bit different. That's a ford. But some of these smaller roads, you move more slowly. But these big main roads are the best roads to move your troops around. You get very limited penalties, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. So we've got all of our troops quickly moved, and we'll just go ahead and end the turn, I suppose. Doesn't look like we can unlimber our artillery there, so we'll go ahead and end the turn. So there you go. It's a 21-turn battle. Let's talk a little bit about Blackburn's Ford. So we're going to go ahead and go into the command tent. This gives you some different options. You can look at your reinforcement report. So as different times go by, you expect to receive different reinforcements throughout the course of the battle. In addition to that, there's a, whoops, I just clicked on the same thing. There's a casualty report where you can see different casualties. So you can see right now, nobody's lost anything. There's also men surrendered, supply captured, weapons cost captured, value of controlled hexes, and victory points. Confederacy has all the victory points at this point in time. Objective report. Okay, so Blackburn's Ford. What was this battle all about? The Union forces are approaching along this road to mount an attack on the rebel weak right flank. This is actually just before Bull Run. So this was a battle between, I want to say, 2 brigades a day before the Battle of Bull Run. Union reconnaissance force under Israel Richardson came across 2 Confederate brigades guarding the crossing on Bull Run. So this is the direct crossing across the Bull Run. The rebels repulsed the Federals, inflicting 78 casualties, despite losses of their own totaling 68 men. The South claimed this warm-up to the first Battle of the Bull Run as an important victory. However, at the early stage of the war, neither side had an inkling of the casualties that would follow. So basically, this is a reconnaissance in force that happened just before the Battle of Bull Run, but because neither side could fathom the casualties that were coming in the actual Civil War, it seemed like an important victory, despite the fact that it really wasn't. The game includes it more from a tutorial standpoint. It acts almost like a tutorial in that it's a very small battle. It grows in size, but it's very manageable. And I apologize, guys, if I sound stuffed up as hell. I've been battling a cold for the last 2 weeks that just won't go away. It might be allergies, I'm not sure. But yeah, so I apologize for that. I'm just going to kind of dig in and wait for some reinforcements because, frankly, if I go charging off, I'm going to get my ass kicked. So we're going to go ahead and kind of dig in here and wait, and maybe hopefully the Confederates come to us. But in the meantime, you know, we have potential for some reinforcements coming in. So I usually play pretty conservative in this scenario. Doesn't look like the Confederates are going to come after me, though. I do still play Hearts of Iron. I haven't played it a ton recently, but I do enjoy the game still. I just haven't live streamed it much. I wanted to kind of get a little bit of a change up for people. Doesn't look like the Confederates are going to do much. God damn it. Okay. So I guess we'll start advancing south and see if we run into any of them. Okay, so far nothing. Keep some of our artillery moving forward with us. I don't see any rebels. Where the hell are they? I played this battle one other time. Oh my goodness. God, the map is very difficult to navigate with this with 2 monitors, so again, sorry about that, guys. So I played this just before the live stream, this scenario, real quick, just to kind of play through it and see, you know, make sure everything is working, make sure the game was working appropriately, and the rebels were on me almost immediately. They advanced rapidly on my position and attacked me, as opposed to just apparently sitting back and waiting. Usually, as the Confederacy in this scenario, I sit back and wait and form a defensive line back behind these, around these fords, but so far they haven't done anything, so I guess that is what it is. I don't have very good lines of sight. Oh my god. Alright, I need to adjust this. For fuck's sake. Options. Scrolling speed. Slowest. We'll see how quick it scrolls now. And this is going to be annoying. I guess I could bring that map back up. I thought it was kind of taking up a lot of space on this map. This gigantic map. Okay, let's get the artillery moving south. If the Confederates aren't going to come after us, we're going to have to go to them. They'll win if we just sit back and do nothing, so... Oh! Right. Just as we decide to move our artillery, we spot some rebels. And you can't unlimber your artillery and limber it at the same turn, so... or and fire at the same turn. So by moving this turn, we also forfeit kind of our ability to attack. I'm not seeing any infantry, though. Where the hell is their infantry? Okay. Just trying to keep this map thing out of the way. Although now the infantry is moving a lot less seamless. Again, remember, guys, this is from 1997, so... Still no sign of any infantry, and yet the enemy's forming their artillery up right in front of us, so I'm going to just try and charge this thing. You do much better against artillery, typically, when you charge it. If you just attack it, I think it can hurt you more. Infantry, if you charge like that just outright, you can attack it more effectively, but if you just flat-out charge infantry, you're more likely to suffer. So the game also has some nice videos here, kind of reenactment videos that they use to kind of add some immersion. So again, artillery fire, after constant infantry attack on this artillery, our artillery fire routed the enemy and finished them off. So I'm confused where the infantry is. It's acting a little bit weird. I don't know if I should be concerned about the game not performing right, or if I should be concerned about the enemy laying some sort of trap. Not sure which. Alright. Okay, so I think that just about does it for the turn. Still no sign of any enemy. Oh, there's the infantry. So it looks like it's going to be a stand-up fight in the middle of some fields. Crap. I was hoping I'd get them unlimbered. Both. Shoot them like fish in a barrel. Okay. Enemy infantry and artillery here. Oh no! I think I just killed Sherman. Leader wounded. William Tecumseh Sherman is wounded! No! Sorry, old William. He didn't make it far into this war. So we routed another enemy artillery battery, which is always good. Artillery can be a pain in the ass. And we're advancing, I'd say, somewhat cautiously. We got some really powerful, big regiments. The nice thing, it's kind of the early war, it's the early war thing. At this stage in the war, no one's taken any casualties, so you've got some massive units fighting it out. Regiments were originally formed to be around 1,000 men, but by the time you got around 1862, mid-1862, late 1862, a lot of times they'd be in the 200 to 300 men range. I think there was actually a Confederate regiment at Chancellorsville, at Antietam, that only had about 70 men. I'm shooting at these guys because they're in column formation, so this game has multiple different types of formations. This is your standard fighting formation, your battle line. This formation here, where you see with their muskets on their shoulders, this is a column formation, which is very vulnerable to artillery fire. And the nice thing also is if you have an artillery and an infantry unit in the same hex and the enemy attacks them, they actually end up attacking them both. Let's see here. No, their morale's too low to charge, but they can still attack the enemy in their column formation, which makes them very vulnerable. At the end of each fight, you'll see you get a summary of casualties, firepower lost, morale changes, and then also supply. So when you drive an enemy unit back, you can cause their supply to drop. It looks like right now the enemy's stronger on our right, so we're going to dig these guys in, and we're stronger on their left. So it'll be interesting to see what the computer does here. I like to charge, but it really brings heavy casualties if you charge and fail to drive the enemy back. If we don't capture the enemy position, the brigade is no safe place to fall back and will surely break and run. So if we attack and we fail to take this position, our men will rout like that artillery, where we'll lose total control of them and they'll move all over the battlefield. Now, the reason I feel comfortable in saying yes, go ahead and charge, is you can see here there's 3 different things that units are measured on. You've got, on the far left, you've got sort of the organization. Are they in good formation? Are they, somewhat put together? In the middle, you've got their health, so what strength they're at. And then on the right, you've got their morale, and that's the likelihood of breaking. So as you can see here, we attacked anyway, and the enemy gave up their ground. We could watch this little video, but, it's just whatever. You can see here we inflicted quite a bit of casualties, only lost 1 man. We also gained quite a bit of morale. The enemy lost a lot of morale, but we also gained a large amount of supply, 201 supply, which we can then use to resupply our own troops. Okay, so we've got our troops moving into position here. I think our artillery's all fired, and so we'll move south. And I kind of keep trying to get this thing out of the way. Go ahead and end that turn. I'm just kind of going for a straight frontal attack on the Confederates. You can see here they had just attacked our right flank and actually lost more men in the attack than we lost. But again, they could easily overwhelm us here on the right, so we've got to be careful. Let's see here. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to start to swing this way. So I'm going to attack my artillery heavily on this unit, and then I'm going to kind of try and charge into them, because right now our right flank regiment has 3 enemy regiments all around it. So if we can knock this guy out of place, then we can help limit the effectiveness that the enemy can attack with. You can see here this artillery can't see anyone from where they're at. That kind of sucks, and it doesn't look like I can do much of anything. I was hoping to be able to concentrate my artillery fire on just this unit, but it didn't quite work out that way. Let's see here. Peck has 74. This is William Tecumseh Sherman's replacement. So if a unit commander, anytime you click on a unit, you'll see on the left here there's a little icon that represents the commander. And if you left click, you can see their capabilities. So he's healthy at 99. He's loyal at 67. I don't really know what loyalty affects, but his organization is and his influence skills there. And they can go up or down during a battle as well. So this guy's have gone up. As well as these little red things down here represent experience. He's only a colonel, though, because Brigadier General William Tecumseh Sherman, I think he's a brigadier general, was killed. Oh, whoops, sorry. No, this is McConnell. No, where was I? Ah! Click out of the wrong units. Peck, that's him. So he actually hasn't gained much experience, but he's only a lieutenant colonel. I believe Sherman was a colonel. However, this enemy unit is somewhat weakened. Their morale is not perfect. It's in the yellow. Their health is dropping a bit. Their firepower is only 19. Ours is 74, so we have a substantial firepower advantage, which is why I'm comfortable charging them and attacking them. And as you can see, we overwhelmed them with our advantage and drove them back. So now that we drove them back, we're going to go ahead and charge them again. And again, when you charge, you generally want to have all green with your guys that are charging. But we're going to go ahead and charge them again. We'll drive them back again. And because they can't retreat directly back because there's Confederates to their front, they keep retreating to the side, which allows us to continue charging and attacking them. And eventually, they're going to break here, most likely, I think. Either way, we're inflicting pretty substantial casualties on them just by attacking the way we are. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start moving these guys in. We're going to keep these guys in place. There's a few reasons for that. It kind of helps protect our flank if somehow enemies appear out of this woods, but also they're all yellow, so they're in a precarious spot. They can still fight okay, but they're starting to get to that point where if they were attacked, there'd be some risk. So what we'll do is we'll just use the rest and recovery option. It gives us the option to resupply, so we can full supply them back. You can see this little mini ball option down here is the unit's supply. That's how many times they can fight. And these all gain a little bit of recovery. Their organization, their health, their morale. If you don't fight with them for a turn, their morale, their organization, all of that stuff goes up a little bit. So we've already fired that artillery, but we're going to start moving this infantry in as well, change them into fighting formation. I don't want to get anyone attacked while they're in marching formation. And I think that's about it. We're not going to attack here on the right with L. Hardy, the colonel here on the 2nd Michigan Regiment, again, because the enemy has troops all around it. Fortunately, Hardy has pretty good firepower, 35. He's also dug in. That's what this little entrenching tool shows, so he gets a benefit. Although, again, he's in the open, so being dug in isn't as beneficial as if we were in these woods. So you can see the enemy continues to attack here, and that attack they lost more than they gave. So again, that's always a nice result to have. This artillery can't see anything. It's over here. So we'll go ahead and we're gonna limber them up and move them south. We're going ahead and Kershaw's regiment is still the most devastating or most powerful regiment. So we'll bombard him with that artillery back there. We also just received a new infantry unit, so we've got to get them moving toward us under Schnennick. And then, I don't know why, this is obviously a boneheaded mistake by the AI, but they did not change Garland's regiment out of marching formation. They left him in column, so we can go ahead and hopefully just seeing what would be the best. It looks like Corrigan's unit would be the best to charge them with. So we'll go ahead and charge them. Again, here, sometimes when your morale's a little bit low, it's in yellow, you can't charge right off the bat. It'll say they'll do it for you, sir, but you need to put your silver tongue to work, and there's a morale cost. So up here along the top is the Army's overall morale. We can spend some of that to convince them to charge, and again, they're charging guys in column formation, so that attack went very well. 28 casualties on our end. We gained 115 of that morale back, while the enemy lost 71 morale, 118 men, 28 firepower. So a pretty devastating charge toward them. They're still in column formation, so we can go ahead and charge them again. And they're going to retreat now. So there you go. That was a pretty successful charge there. Go ahead and get these artillery pieces out of limbered up formation. And we'll bombard these guys for good measure. Maybe we'll drive them back with artillery. No? Okay. Well, fine. Let's see here. What do we want to do next? I'm really in the charging mood. I don't really care about taking casualties, so I just keep kind of charging on forward and, you know, hitting the enemy with really heavy casualties is my goal. I want to rout or destroy as many of these Confederates as possible, so we have, you know, ideally there are carryover casualties. There are impacts to this, so the more we can hurt now, the better off we are later. And look, another Confederate regiment a little bit further out. You know, in another battle, I probably wouldn't charge across 2 hexes to hit them, but they are in column formation, so we're going to do it again. And the enemy breaks ground and falls back. Now, the risk here is we could easily be surrounded here if these Confederates move in behind us, so that is a pretty big risk. We'll let these guys resupply here. I can move these guys south, but then I'm going to leave this guy up here all by himself, too. And this is a really powerful regiment. God damn. So I probably overextend. Holy cow, 99 firepower. I definitely overextended myself here. I should not have done that. I guess what we'll do is we'll pull south. And then I'm thinking we'll attack one of these. Not because I think we'll push them back, but just to kind of try and help mitigate any potential attack against these guys who are kind of in a salient now. I'll leave these guys back here in their defensive position because I believe there is a... Well, I don't know if there is a victory point here. Sometimes when you fight over a specific spot on the map over and over again, you get a victory objective will generate and it'll give you victory points for holding it. Doesn't look like that's actually the case up there. So I think that's everyone. We'll go ahead and end the turn. You can see here the enemy wasted no time in attacking our salient. That first attack, however, they lost more than they got, but in the second attack and the third attack, they really started to, holy cow, 206 men lost. So they're really driving this regiment back and decimated that regiment in those attacks. Damn. Just going to take a second here and check out the chat. I know this is a live stream. I haven't really been interacting with you guys at all. So let me take a real quick look after I get a couple artillery strikes in on Longstreet's regiment. I'll see what you guys are talking about here. Okay. I've seen a lot of people, Nastor, say that Civil War General 2 should have a remake. I agree. I kind of feel like, what was it? Brother Against Brother was kind of a limited attempt to do that, it felt like, on a smaller scale with a little bit more information. It was more war-gamey. It wasn't quite as abstract. But it kind of felt like that was where it was trying to go. Man, these rebels sure like to stay in column formation, huh? We caught them with their breeches up, boys! These lads might have charged earlier for you, sir, but not anymore. No ammunition, and they're looking for a hole to hide in. So we routed that regiment. Now we're surrounded on the 3 sides, and our tactical situation here is not very great. We're being drawn to the right, and our artillery's all on the left. So I'm going to kind of move these infantry guys down here to try and help kind of solidify our front, and then dismount these guys, and I think, yep, our 1 infantry regiment up here, move them south, and we just got a couple more infantry regiments. 2 more just showed up. So we'll go ahead and try and move them south as well. I have seen Gettysburg. It is one of my favorite Civil War movies. Not entirely accurate with regards to Gettysburg. It leaves a lot out and oversimplifies things. Longstreet is certainly made sympathetic. It talks about how reluctant he was to attack on the second day of the battle, but it ignores the fact that he was borderline insubordinate on the second day of the battle as well, really dragging his feet attacking when Lee ordered him to. Some Southern historians have blamed Longstreet on the defeat because of that delay. I think that's a little bit disingenuous. The South wasn't that close to victory, but it certainly wasn't a good showing for him. I would say that I still think very highly of Longstreet as a commander, despite that. You'll see a lot of people who will say he was a horrible commander at Gettysburg and, kind of dismiss his other accomplishments in the war, and I don't think that's fair. I think he was, without a doubt, one of the best Confederate commanders of the war. And I think that if it hadn't been for his post-war politics, I think it's safe to say that he also would have been remembered almost as highly as General Jackson was come war end. So obviously you can see here we've got this unit. We've actually got Longstreet and his regiment surrounded. I've been attacking to kind of soften them up, and then I'm hoping to destroy them with a strong charge from Peck's regiment. Yes, the enemy has no choice but to surrender. So we just captured a Confederate regiment. You can see a bunch of supply, a bunch of morale, 187 casualties. I believe there's more than that if we count captured. So if we go to the casualty report, we can see so far in this fight, the Confederates have been losing much more than we have, far more than the 78 and 68 casualties on each side in the historical Battle of Blackburn's Ford. This fight is turning into a bloodbath. This is it's headed toward Bull Run casualties with only 2 brigades engaged. You can see we're winning heavily in victory points, heavily in victory-controlled hexes, heavily in weapons captured, supply captured, and we also captured 1,098 Confederates. The Confederates have lost 3 leaders killed and 1 wounded, and also I believe Longstreet was just captured as well. But I believe he'll get parlayed and end up back in Confederate hands by the end of the battle. Okay, so we drove that guy back. These guys will continue to let heal, and then we'll bring in more infantry from the north. Our important reinforcements. Okay, so we're all kind of clumped together. Not a great tactical position, but I think it was worth it to capture those 40 enemy men. Or, not 40, those 1,000 enemy men. Okay. Casualties are starting to even out at this point. Damn, I don't have any other easier targets. I'd rather hit this really big Confederate regiment, but my artillery can't reach there. I wish the resolution on this was different. It's a difficult game to play in a modern game system because of how gigantic the resolution is. No. What about these guys? Will we charge their artillery? No. We caught them up. We caught them limbered up, men. Butcher them. Okay. So, this enemy regiment is powerful. Let's see here. I'm trying to see who I want to attack it with. These guys are pretty beat up. We'll pull them back a bit. So are these guys. Frankly, we may just need to dig in and wait. I am gonna put these guys in front, if only to soften any blow with making the enemy attack a more ready unit, while these guys kind of rest and recuperate. Our other regiment is routed and running away. They've dropped all their ammo, which the enemy got. They also dropped some of their muskets, although farmer muskets are pretty much bottom of the barrel, so in terms of quality of the weapon, that doesn't really matter. I will say that this game is surprisingly deep for having a very basic interface. There's a lot of information. So if you right-click on a unit, I've already kind of mentioned this, but you've got the unit organization, the unit health, and the unit morale, and then you've got the unit type. This is infantry, as well as their overall, the solid green versus the light green. The light green is the total unit strength. The solid green is effectives, ready for combat. On the left here, you have leader data. So you've got the leader, his influence, his organization, his loyalty, his health. And then I believe these combat bars represent experience, as well as these red bars down here. If you left-click on a unit, you get their weapon type, there are something like 30 different rifle types, which all have different impacts on firepower. And it puts the organization health and morale into numbers, the quality of the unit, the experience of the unit, the number of men you started with, where you're at right now, manpower, manpower, I guess, for morale points, supply points, and firepower. So it's got quite a bit of information in this game. It's fairly deep for a game of this type. Okay, so you can see here the enemy is attacking us still. We have some limited attacks going on, and they are somewhat successful. Our artillery can't hit anyone else. There's not enough time in the battle, in my opinion, for me to reposition these guns. So I'm gonna hit who I can, and hopefully I can do some damage to that unit as I bring my reinforcements down. You don't want to march fully on. I could have marched right up to him, but then we would have been in column formation and risked being annihilated. We've got these guys who are routed. We can't control them, but we can attempt to rally the routed unit. So if I click on this bugle, the 3rd Michigan Regiment still doesn't want to fight. My glib tongue may impress them, however. I can spend 569 Army morale points up here to try and gain 5 morale points and in terms of morale points for this unit and reform them. So I do that. Nothing happens. So I spent the Army morale points, but these guys are like, screw you, we're still running. Okay, well that sucks. Meanwhile, this Confederate unit is beat up pretty badly by our artillery. We're just going to keep kind of resting our guys, and hopefully we can attack the enemy soon. Meanwhile, our guys over here, you can see they're not in good shape either. They're exhausted. You know, we've been fighting a pretty tough battle thus far. So we're just going to kind of dig in on our position. We've got this one victory flag here that we've got a pretty good, a unit in pretty good shape. So at this point, it's kind of, guys, let's hunker down and await the enemy onslaught if it comes. See here, the enemy moved in and attacked our weakest unit. The AI is pretty good at that. They're pretty good at attacking the weakest unit. They sometimes make some funny decisions, but overall, the AI in this game is pretty darn good. Okay. So we're weakening this unit, which has been attacking us. And now we can actually, we've got sufficient troops. We can try and cut them off. That's kind of what I'm going to try and do. So we've got them surrounded. Let's see if our boys will charge. No, but they will attack. And again, we surrounded that enemy unit. So the AI does a pretty good job of attacking the weakest unit it can. But sometimes it does get itself stuck in bad situations where, again, we captured another Confederate regiment. So we had 1,068 captured. We're up to 1,700. So not only do the rebels have 1,500 casualties to our 1,100, but they also have lost 1,700 men captured. Not as big of an impact early in the war. The game doesn't take this into account. But early in the war, there was a parlay system in place. So, big deal. You capture these guys, whatever, they're going to be back in Confederate clothing in a few months. In real life, it wouldn't have been a big deal. In the game, I don't really know how that's handled.
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
All right, so we'll do that. So the enemy also start to give up ground more easily. When you're winning the battle and their morale is really low and your army morale is really high up here, it also becomes more easy to drive the enemy back. This does have a multiplier effect on actual unit morale as well. So the enemy morale in this fight must be very low at this point because we're pretty much driving them back at will now, with charges at least. We didn't drive them back, and we took pretty heavy losses there, so that was not what I was hoping to do. There we go. So now we can kind of just attack at will. That second unit being, captured really hurt their overall morale. So we'll go ahead and do this. You can see there's supply at the end of every turn. Enemy counterattack that inflicted somewhat substantial casualties on us. Looks like these guns can't even shoot at anyone, so I can try and move them close. Yeah, but they won't be able to unlimber. So the battle's going to be over before they can do anything. Okay. There we go. We just routed an enemy unit. Pull these guys back. They're not in good shape. These guys are in pretty good shape. Defend that position with them. Yeah, I think that about does it. So the enemy doesn't attack us at all. Brigade fled to the supply chain, so that regiment that's running, we're not going to get back, I don't think. Oh, no, we reformed them. So if they had continued running at the end of that turn, they would have run off the map. And as we talk about surrendered units, if we look here, there's also a men deserted option. So there's, if you rout an enemy unit and they retreat all the way back to the supply chain here at the corner of the map and they run off the map, then they leave for the battle. Okay, doesn't look like we have anyone who's in very good shape to... No one's in very good shape as far as charging, but we can still drive the enemy back at least in some spots. They use a lot of morale to get them to charge that unit. But it worked. Might not have been worth it. Okay. Alright. So that'll be the end of the battle, I think. Oh, they'll attack me once. And there it is. The battle is over. The smoke is cleared, General. Do you wish to survey the battlefield or presume to the next screen? I'll save, actually, as it says. THG for me, the historical gamer. We'll go ahead and save, and you can see there the Union backdrop tells us that it was a victory. In this case, it was a major victory for the Union player. The Confederates lost 653 men killed, the Union lost 469. Neither side will get them back in those units lost. The men wounded, 1297 for the Confederates, 953 for the Union. A percentage of them may end up back in those regiments, but there are carryover casualties, so keep that in mind. The enemy lost 3 leaders killed and 1 wounded to our wounded. However, William Tecumseh Sherman was our commander who was wounded, so that could be bad. And the enemy also lost 1,700 men surrendered. So these are all brigades. The 2 Confederate brigades here are brigades that did fight at the Battle of Second Manassas. Now, they weren't heavily engaged. Longstreet's forces, for the most part, were kind of along the front of the force, and the Union tried to outflank the Confederates, so they didn't play a huge role. But again, these are some, at least, even assuming all the wounded come back, at least 2,300 men that the Confederates will not get back versus our 467. Supplies captured, we captured over 9,000 supply value. That allowed us to resupply some of those units that we were resupplying. The Confederates didn't get any. And we captured over 73,000 value of weapons cost captured, and I'll show you what that means in just a minute. Victory points dramatically in our favor, and also victory points from victory hexes significantly in our favor. So Colonel Quinsby has temporarily assumed command of the Iron Brigade due to the hospitalization of William Tecumseh Sherman. You can see here William Tecumseh Sherman's health is rated at 52 out of 100. He is serious but improving. So between every battle, this hospital report will come up, and it'll tell you what happened to commanders in this battle, but it will also tell you about commanders who were wounded in previous battles. So after Bull Run, Tecumseh Sherman will be on the screen here again, and his health could go up. It's implying that it'll go up because he's improving, but sometimes they have sometimes something will happen, maybe an infection will set in, it won't really tell you that, but their condition can deteriorate and he could end up dying. So right now, very serious wound, 50% health. Let's just assume he lost an arm or something like that, and hopefully he recovers. So when you're done with the health screen, there is the armory screen. The lower left 3 portraits show the army's structure, and then we can re-equip units. I don't think... You get a refund, selection displays... So I don't think there's any carryover here. So the 73,000 value that we talked about for the Army weapons cost captured, that allows us to re-equip these units. So right here you can switch between corps commanders. In this battle there was only 1 corps engaged, so we can't upgrade units that didn't fight. Likewise, there was only one division engaged, so we can't change which division we're equipping. But there were 3 different infantry brigades and 1 artillery battery that we could all choose to upgrade. So right now, if we go here, we take a look. Schneck's brigade is using Prussian 1809 smoothbore weapons. And you can see here there are a certain number of each weapon kind available that indicate there's scarcity, so that's kind of a cool thing. And then there's also sort of a firepower factor with these battles as well, or these weapons as well. So there's weapon accuracy and weapon firepower. I'm not sure what the WP versus HH represents, but one of them is sort of firepower, and I think one of them has to do with, like, if you get hit, the close range impact. So, for example, like the smoothbore musket actually had a shotgun round you could throw in there for when enemy troops were really, really close, and it would sprinkle them with grape. So you can see that HH is much higher than some of the other weapons, but it has a very low WP, which I believe influences range. And that is much higher on these rifled weapons. As it is, we were fighting, we've got 3 brigades we could look at upgrading. As we click on different units here, it'll tell you what the cost is to upgrade that. So for example, if we wanted to go to the 1861 Springfield, it cost us $158,000. This was a very small fight, guys. Remember that only 3 brigades engaged. So our overall weapons cost captured, while reasonable for such a small fight, isn't huge. We could upgrade these guys to Lorenz rifled muskets if we wanted, or we could scroll to a different unit. So we could go to the artillery and say, listen, they're using smoothbores, which are great anti-personnel weapons, but have a really short range. We could say, hey, let's go to the 10-inch Parrott. You can see it's got 2 longer range, although a lower anti-personnel, and that would cost us $4,600. Or we could go to the James rifle as well, which would cost us $1,100. I don't see any point doing the James rifle, because I think the James was just a 3-inch version made by the Confederates, although someone can quote me on that if I'm wrong. I'm happy to leave them with the smoothbores. Those are really good weapons at close in. They actually have the highest AP capabilities. So if we look at Quinby, this was the Iron Brigade. They already have Springfield weapons. We could try and upgrade them to the Sharps, but frankly, they already have such a good gun right now, there's not much of a point doing that. Or we could do Richardson's brigade. So we can see here the first brigade we looked at had 2,700 men. This one has 2,800, so it's a bit bigger, but they're also armed with Prussian smoothbore weapons. So we could go to their Lorenz, but if we go there, we don't have enough money for that. So we could go to a rebored farm musket, which is just a glorified farmer's weapon. But again, there's not a huge upshot for doing that. So I think we're going to go back to the first unit, and we're going to go to the Lorenz rifled musket, because I think that's the best we can afford. Yep, it is. So we'll go to the Lorenz rifled musket. You'll see it'll take 66,000. I don't think there's any carryover, unfortunately, so if I lose, if I have leftover, I don't think that carries over to the next battle. It also tells you what the bullet cost is. So the supply cost, you see the army supply of 73,000. That will be influenced during fights based on the weapon you have. Different weapons have higher or lower supply costs. But we're going to go with the Lorenz rifled musket, which is an interesting weapon. Depending on who you talk to, some people had very high opinions of it, some people had very low opinions of it. The Enfield rifled musket was the British standard weapon at the time, and it was very well regarded. It was often compared to the Springfield, had a little bit less range than the Springfield, but overall was a very good weapon. Both sides bought hundreds of thousands of them. There were many other weapons that were imported during the Civil War as well, and the Lorenz was one of them. So there were a lot of really cheap weapons, kind of extra Belgian weapons or French weapons that were brought in that were kind of hand-me-downs from even the Napoleonic Wars. In some cases, there were smoothbores that were rifled from the Napoleonics that were sold, because the Americans were massing such huge forces. There was an unprecedented demand for weapons, and the Lorenz was one of those weapons that came in from Austria-Hungary. If you got the fresh new productions, they were actually pretty good, but some of them were in horrible shape as well. They were kind of hand-me-down weapons that they were offloading out of their military, so it depends on which one you got. Overall, I like the Lorenz. It's kind of an interesting sort of alternative to the Enfield if you're talking about Civil War history at a high level. So we'll go ahead and we'll go with the Lorenz, and you can see there when we upgrade, see our firepower right now is only 18 with these Prussian weapons. If we upgrade to the Lorenz, big impact, all the way up to 32. So again, upgrading weapons is important to increase your unit's firepower. Now that we upgraded there, though, there are none available. So when you go back, you can see there's one available for units to upgrade to. If we had enough money to upgrade again, we couldn't upgrade to another Lorenz, because again, there's limited supply. You've only imported so many of these. However, by switching from the Prussian to the Lorenz, it does open up a Prussian 1809 smoothbore, so it does give us one more of those. And after all my long jabbering, I'm going to go ahead and hit done and say the purchase is complete. All right, folks, that does it for the first part of this series on Civil War Generals 2. This was a live stream, like I said, that I conducted on August 14th. That was the Battle of Blackburn Ford. The next battle, as you can see here on the screen, will be the Battle of Bull Run. It's an alternate, but we'll talk more about that in the next part. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave your comments. Let me know what you think. But until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.